I was like, wait, so they're paying me year round and I have like all this time off. After that first season, I said to myself, I'm just gonna go on a backpacking trip. And I planned it out because that first off season, I also had a girlfriend, but then we broke up, and I was like, let me just go on this trip. And as this is happening, we were rock climbing and all these things. Chris introduces me to the rock climbing videos, which I think happened at the same time that you met Thelma, and so it all just flowed. It was this just flow of events that led me to wanting to go on this backpacking trip to South America.
Welcome to the Salt Podcast, where we talk about all things simple. Yep, simple anointed living tips. I'm your host, Jenny Peña. Welcome back, everybody. I am so freaking excited about today's guest, if you cannot tell. Well, it not only is the first man that I get to record with so far on this podcast journey, but it's none other than my big brother, Julian Varela. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. And hello to everybody.
So,
Yeah, I'm
Julian,
excited too.
so I call my brother Julian. Julian sounds so weird. So if you hear me calling him Julian, just know that's his, I guess, the Hispanic way of saying his name. But
Yeah.
yeah, he is 1 year older than me, born in 86. And yeah, we are like twinsies. But Julian, for everybody that doesn't know who you are, why don't you give us a little bit of background on what you do, what you've been up to?
Okay. Sounds good. Well, first I wanted to thank you again for having me on, and I'm really like I'm really excited to be on this podcast, and I'm really proud of you for having done this.
Aw.
So just a little bit of background on myself. I guess we can just do it a little bit of everything. I was born in Reno,
Yeah.
Nevada, or we were born in Reno, Nevada, and I'm currently living in Miami. I studied athletic training, so I have a master in athletic training, which for those that don't know what that is, and it's confused a lot with personal training. It's actually sports medicine. So I
Mm,
deal with athletes, injured athletes, and I help with their rehab, and I help prevent injuries is the main thing that we do. Um,
cool.
so I went to FIU, graduated in 2010, and right now, like I said, I'm currently living in Miami and just working independently with private clients and doing other things among that. So that's
Yeah,
just like a
because
brief
you have like an entrepreneurial side. I can never say that word, but you're always
entrepreneurial.
like,
Yes.
yeah, entrepreneurial side, which I think runs in our family apparently. But you have dipped your toes in a lot of different things too, because you are an artist and you were trying to study architecture and you completely shifted to like sports medicine or your athletic training thing. So that's cool. But like, I guess to let everyone know, this specific podcast is going to be about Julian's adventures, which have been
Yes.
really cool. And I wish I could have gone with him. But before we dive into your stories, because you have some amazing stories, let's bring people a little bit into like, why would you do that? Like, how were you? It's so funny. How were you raised? Like, what memories do you have of us growing up and like our influences, I guess, as far as like traveling and all of that good stuff?
That's actually awesome that you asked that because you made me think about all those memories of us traveling. So yeah,
Like,
just to
where to
bring
even
it back.
begin?
That's why I paused because I was trying to think of how to how to start. But for those of you that don't know, Reno, Nevada is in this area. It's like in this corner of Nevada. It's north of Las Vegas. If you're driving, it's 7 hours north of Las Vegas. If you're going in a plane, it's an hour. So Reno is really close to San Francisco. And those of you that live in Miami, it's like a 3 hour drive. Uh, Reno is a 3 hour drive from San Francisco. And it's similar to well, I live in Miami now, and it's the same distance as it is from Miami to Orlando. So
Yeah.
we used to travel to San Francisco all the time, just weekend trips. I remember traveling a lot with not only us four, and then when Nicole was born, our other
Yeah.
sister, we would travel to San Francisco. Um,
Road trips.
we Yeah, road trips, just weekend trips. We had long trips as well, where we would go to other places. Like I remember we went to Los Angeles, and the
Yeah.
only memory that I have of Los Angeles is that we went to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And then I think we went to San Diego one time as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
And our
the memory
camping trips.
the memories that I have most burned in my brain are the trips that we made to Yosemite. And
Gosh, those were
those
crazy
were
times.
yeah, those were awesome. Those were awesome
So
because
awesome.
it wasn't just us. It was
Yeah.
like our whole family. Like because the other thing about us living in Reno was that it was we had uncles that lived in Reno as well, so we had a lot of cousins, and so we traveled to
With
Yosemite as
everyone,
a
like
family. Yeah,
caravan
everyone.
style.
Exactly. And those were really fun. I remember being in Yosemite. I think we were there for I don't know, 4 days, and we went there
Yeah.
twice. And all I remember, I don't have like vivid memories of Yosemite. Most of all, I remember the feeling that I got of being in Yosemite, and it was just awesome. And
Yeah.
I remember like hiking through trails. I remember that
The dome.
where we were, yeah, Half Dome. I don't remember Half Dome too much. I remember seeing it, but I remember I think we talked about it, and you were telling us, or me, that we hiked up Half Dome, and I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I
Um,
do.
did we actually like go on top of it?
I remember a trail with like some sketchy ropes, and we were like sticking to the wall as close as we could. And like the big people, like the adults, and I don't know who went up like really far, and we didn't really go up that far.
Oh, okay. So we kind of
Yeah.
stayed down.
Yeah.
So yeah, those of you that don't know, Yosemite is a national park in California, and it's known for its big walls, and this is the mecca of rock climbing. So there's these trails that go up these huge walls, and it's one of the most amazing places that you can go to for everything outdoors. Whether you like to hike, whether you like to camp or other things, rock climb, there's a lot of things that you can do there. But it's the most amazing place that you can go to. Um, and so I remember going there, and they were just fun memories. I
Hmm.
remember one of the times that we went camping there, we were camped next to a river, and so I remember just like having fun in the river. And then I think on one of the last nights that we were there, the since I think it was a spring into summer, and that the snow was melting, so the rivers
Yeah.
were rising, and this river flooded our campsite. And I remember us having to move our tent in the middle of the night. Uh, yeah,
A
we had
few
to
of
move it like
us,
I don't know. Yeah,
my
we had to move
uncles.
all our tents.
That was crazy because I thought, oh man, I peed the bed. And then it was like, no, it's flooding. Everybody
Yeah,
out. It
yeah.
was crazy.
And one of the funny moments was our uncle Alfonso, he shaved my head bald because at that time, Michael Jordan, he was like a very iconic athlete in his prime at that time, and everybody was all about Michael Jordan, and even me. And so I wanted to shave my head bald, like Michael Jordan. So he did
And
that.
he
He did me
did.
that favor. Yeah,
He did.
it was funny.
And we have pictures of that. It's
Yeah,
crazy how white his head was.
yeah.
You're
So
funny.
um, the other thing that I wanted to mention was that my dad, Adan Varela, he worked with airlines practically
Hmm.
his like whole working career, and so because of that, we got to travel a lot. And most of all, when we were living here in Miami, we moved from Reno to Miami when I was 13. When we were, well, now I was 13. You, or no, 12, and you had
No,
to be 11 or 12.
I think I turned 11 in Colombia. Like we did a transition. Like
Okay, so
how
you were
long was
11
it?
and I was 12. We
Yeah.
were there for 6 months. Yeah, we were in
Mm.
Colombia, transitioning from Reno to Miami. In that transition, we were in Colombia for 6 months while our parents were organizing everything in Reno to move to Miami. And so when we moved to Miami, we would travel a lot. Well, back to Reno, we would spend our summers in Reno. Um,
Hmm.
and then I know we went to Italy, we went to Costa Rica, um, we went to
As a
Philadelphia.
family.
We traveled as a family. We did all of this
Hmm.
as a family. And
Hmm.
so all these trips were just really fun.
And they
And
kind of led up to both of us kind of feeling super comfortable with just traveling and being on our own because like you said, when we would go to Reno in the summers, a lot of the time it was just me, you, and Nicole going in an airplane by ourselves. Like it
yeah,
wasn't like anybody would go with us. And then it reached a point where I was going to visit friends or family on my own as well. Like I wasn't going with anybody because I could pretty much navigate airports on my own. And then you started going on your own to Colombia quite often for a bit.
oh yeah, that's right.
And then Nicole got bigger and she started going alone on trips as well, flying. And then it all kind of like led to us just moving. Well, I feel like I moved a lot first, I think, of the three of us. And then you got this awesome job with a baseball team.
I did.
And
I
that was
started
like,
work. Well, yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I started working with the Toronto Blue Jays,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I started working with them. That was my first job after I had graduated, and so I traveled to the Dominican Republic, which is an island south of Florida, and I was working there from well the baseball season starts in March, which is spring training, and uh, and then after spring training, which is the whole month of March, I traveled down to the Dominican Republic to the team that I was assigned to. And for those of you that don't know or not or really not into sports, the Toronto Blue Jays are a major league baseball team, and they're in the same division as the Yankees. I know that everybody's heard of the Yankees, and so that's how I always explain who the Toronto Blue Jays are because they're in the same division as the Yankees. And
Mm.
I was assigned to this team, and as I said before, I was in charge of managing the team's injuries and rehabbing and doing treatments and um, teaching them how to prevent injuries and strengthen muscles and things like that. And so, so that was another trip in itself. Having gone to the Dominican Republic, which is a different world, I remember going through culture shock when I first got there
Yeah.
because everything was like so different. Um,
And it was
and
kind of
so
the
I,
first time that you like left the nest. It was the first time where you were pretty much out of the house and on your own.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that we had traveled on our own, but this was the first time that um because through college I lived with at home. Well, we lived at home with our parents, and yeah, when I got that job, that was the first time that I leave the house, and it so it hit me hard from different perspectives
Angles.
where
Yeah.
yeah, different angles. Where first time I leave home, the first job, and I'm working in a different country with people that I don't even know, and so
Whew.
yeah, it was a whole bunch of things mashed together. And so that was tough, but I made it. I'm here.
Yeah.
I worked with the Blue Jays for 5 years. I did 2 seasons in the Dominican Republic, and the other 3 seasons, I was assigned to a baseball team or a farm team in this league called the Appalachian League, which is in Virginia, in Bluefield, Virginia. So that was a different type of culture shock, even for me. Uh, I mean, I consider myself American, but when you're living in Miami for as long as we've lived, and it has this Latin American vibe. It's like this this melting pot of all sorts of Latin American people, and it's Miami is like a different country in itself. So when you
Yeah.
leave Miami, you actually get to know what Americans really are. And that was kind of a shock for me when I went to Bluefield, Virginia.
Yeah, because we had been gone from Reno for most of like our adult, memory. We
Yeah.
haven't, I haven't been back in years, like since high school or middle school, maybe. No, no, we did go back. Just kidding. We did go back when I was in college one time for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Thanksgivings in
that's right.
Reno were
Yeah,
the thing. But yeah, so it does feel like it was ages ago. And that kind of was a big deal for you, I remember, because you had to learn like endurance, basically. Like, this is it. This is adult life. This is a career choice. I have to make it work.
that's right. Yeah, it was pretty tough. And but like I said, I made it, and I worked 5 years with the Blue Jays, and in that time, I remember the first off season with the Blue Jays. I went to Venezuela, and at that time, Venezuela wasn't as bad as it is right now. And so that was another awesome thing. I got to visit another country, and that was like another culture shock for me, having to adapt to that culture. And
Hmm.
that one was much quicker because I don't know why. So Colombia and Venezuela are like there are two countries that on the map they sit next to each other, and so they're neighbors. And I felt that the Venezuelan culture is similar to Colombian, so I could connect more to that. But that was a lot of fun. Where I was at was next to this. Well, so Venezuela is very mountainous, and
Hmm.
where I was living in Venezuela was in a city called Valencia, and um, like the apartment where I was staying was probably a 15-minute run to this mountain, and it's this trail called Casupo. And I remember going frequently to this trail and hiking up the mountain, and it was a lot of fun. I would go at least 2 times a week, and the best part was when I would come down, they had this freshly squeezed orange juice that was so good,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, so it's so awesome because you put all this energy and effort to hike up and then back down. Hiking down the mountain was also pretty tough. So you're exhausted, and then there's orange juice at the bottom. And so
So
I
refreshing.
would buy this. Yeah, it was the most. It was not like they squeeze it there. They squeeze the orange juice there, and um,
So it's fresh,
it was just really
fresh,
good.
like
It was really
fresh.
fresh. Yeah, and I'm
Nice.
exhausted, so I would
Okay,
buy the orange
so
juice, and yeah.
so we covered basically like all this leading up to this humonger trip that you planned. So you come with this like idea. Where did the idea come from anyway? This whole backpacking journey.
So the backpacking journey, it was sparked by a lot of things. It was sparked by all these things that we had just talked about, all the trips, the family trips, the traveling, and one specific friend, his name is Chris. He what's it called? He introduced me to these videos. This climber Alex Honnold, which actually
Mm.
so Alex Honnold, he's one of the most um he's probably one of the best rock climbers right now. Um,
Oh,
he's
wait. So we need to back up a little bit again
yeah,
because we forgot to cover how we got into rock climbing.
exactly. So rock climbing was one of the things that sparked this backpacking trip. So just to back up a little
Oh,
bit, it was my friend Chris that he showed me this video of Alex Honnold and how he free climbed Half Dome. So we were just talking about Half Dome, yeah, earlier. We were talking about Half Dome earlier, which is which is this wall in Yosemite National Park. So he free soloed it, which it means essentially that he climbed it with no gear. It was just him and a chalk bag for his hands, which is crazy. And so
that's
as I'm watching this
crazy.
video, it's a 60 minutes video on YouTube for those that would like to watch it. It's a
Yeah,
13-minute
we'll
long
link it
video.
in the episode notes. We'll go ahead and link that for you
Sure.
guys. So
Yeah.
after you listen, you can check it out.
And so this video, I remember watching him climbing and my hands were sweating. I think that just thinking about it right now, it makes my hands sweat because it's crazy what he does. And so after watching this, and he showed me other rock climbing videos. After watching this, I'm like, man, I'd like to try that. Not climbing without equipment, but just rock climbing. I'm like, I want to do that. And I don't know if it was me that started rock climbing or you.
So the story is that I had Jasmine and I joined these mom groups. And in one of my breastfeeding groups, I met a really good friend of mine, Thelma. Remember Thelma, Julian?
Yeah, I remember her.
And
Yeah,
she
yeah, because
is
she's gonna be part of the story, the backpacking story too.
exactly, she is like fitness and she's just amazing. Like biology, botany, the environment, and like she's getting a PhD and like all this environmental stuff that I don't even know because she's just so brilliant. And she's also Colombian, Puerto Rican, I think. And we met in Miami, and she was like, "Girl, we just need to go do something just us. Um, we need to climb." And I wasn't physical at the time, so she was helping me get back into, getting physical again. And I had no idea about climbing gyms. I didn't know like how serious people were about this stuff. I didn't even know a climbing gym
Yeah,
was called a climbing gym. I was like, yeah, let's go climb the indoor rock wall thing. Um, and that's pretty much like the only thing I knew about it was like at resorts, they have like these little kid rock wall things. I'm like, oh, cool.
yeah,
But then we started going, and then I think we invited you to come one time, and she taught us everything, like the basics. And then me and you started going, and then our whole family started. My mom started climbing, and Nicole started climbing, my little sister, and it just went from there. Like Okay, yeah. So then after Thelma kind of showed us the ropes and we got the hang of belaying and all of that, we started going without her. And then we started going with mom and with Nicole, and then
That's right.
just me and you a few times. And
Yeah.
you were like, of course, because you're way more athletic than I am. You always have been way more athletic than I am. So you were like going on all the walls, and I was like, okay, you're like leveling up, bro.
Well, you were pretty strong too. I remember you doing some stuff, and I'm like, how the heck is she doing this? Especially on the ones that incline like back, where it's almost like you're climbing upside down, or field at least that you're climbing upside
Yeah.
down when you're going up those routes.
Yeah, we were spider people.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then we got like hooked to rock climbing. And then you started going with friends too, I think. And
I
then,
I went with Paolo. He started climbing with us sometimes, and that was just meeting friends there at the rock climbing gym. And sometimes I would randomly invite other friends to, because I was really stoked about rock climbing and I wanted to show other people. So I would randomly go with some friends.
and then somehow this whole idea about backpacking like grew on you. And your ideas and your questions became like, okay, we need to plan this.
Yeah.
And you started planning it, and I was like, okay, I guess he's really doing this. Like, what? How did that all happen?
So thinking about it right now, I don't know specifically how it happened. I just remember, so going back to my friend Chris, he showed me all these videos. I think he also he didn't give me this book, but he's like, dude, you got to read this book. It's called Vagabonding. And Vagabonding
Oh,
is a book that talks about backpacking, like how to backpack, and it gives you tips on how to do it. And I remember reading this book, and like I said, I don't remember if I read it before going on this backpacking trip or like during, but I remember everything just it all just came together because so I'm working with the Blue Jays, and the one thing that I didn't explain about the Blue Jays, well, I did explain how the season starts in March, and I didn't say that the season start ends in September, October. It's actually no, it ends in September for the farm leagues. So I ended in September, and then I didn't have to work until the following February. So that first year, that's why I worked in Minnesota, because in the off season, they sent me to work with this winter ball team in Minnesota. They have a league of their own, and their league starts in October and it ends in December. So
mm-hmm.
that's why I went to work over there. So all of this to say that in that time, I really didn't have to work. So from the moment that the season ends, which is in September, to February, I didn't have to work at all. All I had to do were these monthly reports because they give you a list of players that you need to track and just follow up on to make sure that they're healthy. That's all I have to do. Just a monthly, or I think it was every 2 weeks that I have to send this report. And so I was like, wait, so they're paying me year round and I have like all this time off. After that first season, I said to myself, I'm just gonna go on a backpacking trip. And I planned it out because that first off season, I also had a girlfriend, but then we broke up, and I was like, let me just go on this trip. And as this is happening, we were rock climbing and all these things. Chris introduces me to the rock climbing videos, which I think happened at the same time that you met Thelma, and so it all just flowed. It was all this
Mm-hmm.
just flow of events that led me to wanting to go on this backpacking trip to South America. So I ended up planning out that I wanted to go to Colombia first because I know Colombia. I told myself
Mm-hmm.
that I would start there, and my brother, or well, our brother from our dad's side, he lives in Chile, in the city
Mm-hmm.
called Temuco, which is south of Santiago. Santiago is the capital of Chile, and I told myself I'd like to go visit him. So I planned it to where I was going to take this trip, start in Colombia, which is a country that's in the north part of South America, and make my way down to Chile, which is it's on the west coast of South America, and it's just this long strip, this country that's just a very thin, long strip, and it leads to Patagonia. But at the time, I didn't know what Patagonia was, but when I started this trip, I was like, man, I would love to go there because all these other backpackers were talking about it, and I'm like, wow, that has to be so cool. So I remember, I don't remember specifically how it happened, but I obviously mentioned it to you, and since you were friends with Thelma, you're like, oh, Thelma's husband, he was a park ranger or is a park ranger for, I think at the time he was at FIU, if I remember correctly, and he
Yeah,
was
and
in charge of something.
he used to be a park ranger for like, I don't know, what did she say, Yosemite or Yellowstone,
Yeah,
something like that. And
for
then
I remember it was Yosemite.
yeah, and then when we met them, he was a director of the environmental stuff in FIU. So he was in
Yeah,
charge of that protected area. There's like a protected park there, a natural habitat in FIU.
right.
So they
Yeah, on
were
the
building the
FIU campus.
garden. Yeah, so they were building the garden there, and they were just fixing up that little area there, which is amazing. Like it was amazing. Like she took me there a few times, and I was just wowed by their work. But anyway, so you got to sit and talk to him because you were like, okay, I'm doing this like old school style, minimalist, um, you know, hostels, tents, like sleeping in trains and buses type of thing. So you were like, I need to sit with this guy. And mostly it was like about your gear, I think, like what to take and what not to take. Everyone, sorry to interrupt this episode. Just stopping to remind you about the Pink Premium membership. Click the episode notes for the Pink Premium Access link. There's a monthly or yearly rate, and you get all the exclusive of the Salt podcast in the Pink Premium. This episode is actually part one of a three-part series. Part two and three will be available only for Pink Premium members. Thank you for your support.
Exactly. I remember. So you introduced me to them, and and you were like, "This is the guy that you need to talk to." And so we met up, and I remember I was just telling him what I was planning, and he's like, "Oh man!" Oh, and he was telling me his story because he's gone backpacking to Peru, and that was one of the countries where I don't know if at the moment I had thought about Peru, but when he told me about Peru, I was like, "Man, I really want to go to Peru." As he told me his crazy backpacking story of how he went to Machu Picchu. And I don't remember the details, but I just remember that there's a certain way that you can get to Machu Picchu, which all the tourists get to, but he did it the crazy way. You can hike from this city called Cusco to Machu Picchu. You can hike, and there's a trail. And so I think that's what he did, if I remember correctly. And he
Mm.
tells me how he would he was camping, he was meeting locals, and they were offering him food, and I think maybe a place to stay, and so on. Those were the things that he was encountering, and so the crazy part of this story is how he got to Machu Picchu because normally there's a way to get in, like the main entrance. So you can
Mm-hmm.
either hike up this trail or go on a bus, or I don't know. I think those are the two main ways that you can get up there. And he was telling me how he snuck in. If I remember correctly, it was him. Could have been another person, but he was telling me this story of how he snuck in to Machu Picchu,
I
and it
think I
was so
remember that
crazy.
story.
Yeah, yeah, it was so awesome. I think that it wouldn't do it justice if I tell you guys, but the way that he told it was so awesome, and um, that was just it was fun and exciting. So I decided that I was going to Machu Picchu as well, and the whole point of mentioning him, I think his name is Ryan,
Mhm.
and so we set up another time that we were gonna sit and chat. He told me, okay, bring everything that you'd like to take on this trip. So I'm like, all right. The next time that we meet, I take all the things that I want I want to take on this trip. And so he basically dissected everything. I would hand him an item. He's like, okay, why are you taking this? And so I would have to explain why I'm taking it. But the funny thing is that since I'm an athletic trainer, I'm really um,
Like your
into
workouts.
yeah, exactly, workouts. And part of these workouts you have to use like certain equipment. It was mostly body weight, but you there's like bands that I wanted to take, a foam roller just to warm up and just roll out muscles that may be tight and things like that. And I remember he grabbed the foam roller. He was like, "Are you really gonna use this?" And I'm like, "I think so." And he's like, "No, man, like just use your water bottle and you can use that as a foam roll." And I'm like, okay. So he's going through all these items and I'm like, man, like basically everything that I took, he's like, don't take this, don't take this. Well, he didn't take me, don't take it. He didn't tell me to not take it, but he made me realize that I shouldn't be taking those things.
He
So
made you
at
realize how unnecessary the items that
yeah,
you were
right,
choosing were
right,
really in perspective to your trip, basically. Like giving
exactly.
you scenarios like, when are you going to use this? How are you going to use this? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it essential?
Like really, dude. Yeah, exactly. And he was really nice about it. It wasn't like he was being mean about it. He just made me really reflect on, okay, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't take this. And I ended up, what I ended up taking was the following. It was just a normal JanSport backpack. Um,
Mhm.
I took, so it was the jeans that I had on, the underwear that I had on, the sock, so the clothes that I was wearing. Uh, 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 an ex a pair of shorts, actually just like one short. Um, I think maybe I didn't take socks actually. I didn't take socks. I decided to just not wear socks. Um, two pairs of shoes, my rock climbing shoes, my rock climbing belt, maybe two or three pairs of underwear. Um, a short sleeve shirt, a long sleeve shirt that was button up, a tank top, and that was pretty much it. Like, well, my toothbrush not and deodorant, and I think that was it. And my water bottle.
And a
That was
book.
it. And a book and my Kindle, and that was it. The book that I took was the vagabonding book. I think I was rereading it, and that was it. That was all I took. And
And I
it
remember,
might sound crazy, but man, it was that I would for anybody that wants to backpack. That's what I recommend. Would recommend that you take the least amount of items possible.
what's crazy is the least amount of items possible that you took for the amount of days that your trip lasted.
Yeah, that's true. I was in South America for almost 4 months.
Boy, That's crazy. And I remember
Yeah.
even that you said, I don't know what it was that you said that you took that you were like, dang, he was right. I shouldn't have taken that.
Yeah. What was it? I think I also took a sweat. No, I bought. So that was okay. So the other key thing that he made me reflect on was like, okay, um, even if you don't take these things, it doesn't matter because you can just buy it over there. Like if you need another shirt, just buy it over there. And I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
that's a great point. And so I forget what it was that I took that I'm like, man, I shouldn't have taken this. And I say this because I'm taking, so when you're backpacking, yes, you're staying at hostels, um, or I mean, if you want to, you can stay at a hotel, but you're carrying your luggage with you. So when you're carrying these things with you, you're carrying it on your back, and so it just weighs you down. So imagine if I remember going on this trip and seeing people. There's specific backpacks for backpacking, and well, also for camping, but they're huge backpacks, and uh, um, they categorize it by the amount of weight you can take in the backpack. And so there's like 30-pound backpacks, 50-pound backpacks, 70, 100. And I remember seeing people with like 50, 70-pound backpacks at like girls just
Hmm.
lugging these things around. And women are strong, but man, carrying 70 pounds on your back on these trips and just hiking,
No
walking around the
way.
city. Yeah, I would not do that. Like my backpack probably weighed like 10 to 15 pounds. And I'm telling you that there's things that I probably shouldn't have taken. And I did get rid of certain things. Like the only thing that I took in terms of like showering was a bar of soap. That's all I took. And so I was gonna say the sweater and the rain jacket that I bought it in Colombia as I was starting this trip. And I don't know where I was heading with this, but yeah. So the point here was that I would recommend for those of you who want to backpack to really like um, to really analyze the things that you want to take if it's important or not.
Yeah, if you're really gonna use it and
Exactly.
um like I remember you were asking him about like fires and stuff like that. He's like, "Really? You're gonna make a fire? Why?" What
Yeah,
for?
things like that. Yeah, yeah. It's these crazy ideas that like you don't know anything about when it's the first time that you're gonna go backpacking, you have ideas of what you would like to do, and some of them make sense, some of them don't. So yeah, he was really good at just being like real about things. He's like, really, man, are you gonna do this? And so that was awesome. That was
Okay.
he was like one of the keys to my backpacking trip.
And then was the okay, you're really doing this and you're going by yourself? Wait, did you start off by yourself or were you meeting
Yeah,
somebody there? I can't remember.
no, I did this all on my own. I wasn't meeting with anybody, and that was a scary part about it. And that's kind of what made me procrastinate a little bit because when I first started, so I meet Ryan, I get all my things ready, I'm doing this, and the next step is just buying the ticket, and that's what I was procrastinating on, and it was because the uncertainty was the biggest thing that made me procrastinate. Uncertainty of, man, what am I gonna do? I was reading up on websites about backpacking and where I could go, what things I need to watch out for, things that I need to be careful about, and looking for hostels. Where am I gonna stay? Just planning everything out, all those details, and and the other thing that I did was I winged most of it in the sense that I only planned, I knew where I was going to, the cities that I wanted to visit, the destinations, but I didn't plan out ahead in terms of, okay, which house am I staying at? that's what I was winging. I planned out the first places where I was gonna go, but the rest, it was just gonna be, it was up in there. And so that uncertainty was what was making me procrastinate. But I did it.
Mm.
I bought my ticket, and I it's funny because actually I started my trip in Peru now that I remember, and I bought my ticket to go to Lima, Peru, the capital of Peru, and I didn't tell anybody anything. Like I didn't tell my mom that I had bought my ticket already, and the day of the day that I traveled, I told her, "Hey, mom, I'm leaving," and she got so mad at me.
Serious?
Yeah,
I
she
didn't
got
know
really mad at
that.
me. Yeah,
Where was I? I didn't know
I'm not
that.
sure. I'm not sure where you were at, but she got mad at me, and so that's how I started my trip. But now that I remember, I started in Lima, Peru, and
Oh,
I
okay. So you
remember,
didn't
yeah,
go from Miami to Colombia first? You went.
no, that so now that I remember, my trip was two segments, and the
Okay.
reason that I made it two segments was I went to Peru first for like a month, I think, and I had to go back to Miami, one for a seminar that I had to take for athletic training, which was in Tampa, and then the other one was because I had to go to Colombia because our well dad, he was getting married, he was getting remarried, so my parents went through a divorce and he was getting remarried, so he wanted me at his wedding, which was in Bogota, Colombia. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. So that's
Yeah.
why I had to separate it into two segments. So just diving into onto the trip. So I planned it out. I speak to Ryan. Everything is said. I buy my ticket. I didn't tell my mom. I go to. I start off in Lima, Peru, and so I didn't even know. I knew which hostel I was going to. I knew that actually I did not make the reservation for the hostel, and but I knew that the area that I was going to, and there was about like maybe five hostels. So I get to Lima. I ask around like to see how I could get there. I didn't take a taxi. I took a bus as if I was a local, and so it was kind of sketchy because the airport wasn't not in a good area. You could tell that it was kind of like in the poor area of the city, and I make it to the hostel. I think it was like an hour ride, and that's where I start like looking around for hostels, and I come up on this one that I really like. So I stayed there for about 3 or 4 days, and when I'm
Still
in the
no like
hostel,
real plan. Like, what was the plan? I'm gonna stay in this hostel in Lima, which is like just city. Like, what are you gonna do
yeah,
in the city?
I actually don't know. I just know. So my mindset is the following: I'm really into rock climbing, and I mentioned that I took my rock climbing shoes and my rock climbing the harness. The harness is what you wear on around your waist to tie into the rope, and the rope is what keeps you secure on the wall. And so I just take my harness, my shoes, and like I said, I'm really into rock climbing, and all I want to do is climb. So that I knew that what I was going to do on this trip was climb,
Mm-hmm.
and my goal was to find areas where I can go climb outdoors. I knew there was gyms, like indoor climbing gyms, but what I really wanted to do was climb outdoors. And so that's my mindset, doing that. And also, I had just gone gone through a breakup with my girlfriend. We girlfriend at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were together for 2 almost 3 years. So I was uncertain about what I think maybe it was. I wasn't going through a midlife crisis, but because at the time I was, I don't know, like 24, 25. Um, I just didn't know what I wanted to do for myself in the future. So it was kind of finding myself type of trip. it was about having fun, but I also was on this spiritual path where I wanted to do a lot of introspection and just know what I wanted to do with myself and life in general. So those were
Yeah, I
the
remember that.
yeah.
It was like a
That
really
those were
huge
like the
transition for
reasons.
you.
Yeah.
Like such, wow, so many big changes and then yeah, that breakup was like, oof, that was a hard time for you. And I
Yeah, it
remember
was.
being there and like kind of supporting you and your decision and reminding you why you made that decision, like it's for the better for everyone, because of
Right.
certain things that we won't get into now. But I think that trip also, all the changes that were happening, and you kind of like having this like um I don't know, that like hero's journey that you hear about, like that you hear a
You're
calling,
right.
you accept the calling, you deny the calling, and you're like, heck no. And then the things start falling into place and you can't deny it anymore and you have to do it. And it's like this whole journey that you have to go on to like, I don't know, basically like become the man that you're meant to be and
Right.
become like, I guess, more in tune with the man that you're becoming.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it was for me. Trying to find myself, trying to find a direction. The other thing for me was I wasn't too sure about what I was doing in terms of my career. So part of it was that too. Even to this day, um, I cherish having studied what I studied, but sometimes I ask myself, is this something that I really want to do? And that's something that I was going through at that time, but it was an emotion that was much stronger than it is today, and that was part of it too. You know, um, trying to find yourself as a person, as a for your career, the breakup, all these things. So that for me was one of the main reasons. The climbing was just for fun. Um, it was something that I was really obsessed with, and it was more fun than anything else. I had mentioned that we had gone to Yosemite, and so I'm a person that loves to be outdoors. I love everything that has to do with outdoors, like hiking. I the, I did cross country and track in high school and in college, and
Yeah,
so
you were
I
in
just
teams, you were in cross country teams, like competitive like sports, like even growing
yeah,
up in Reno, you were in football
yeah.
teams and like you've always been super athletic. And like, so this was like the, I don't know, the biggest hurdle and the biggest like, I don't know, how do you say, like, not just goal, but like this was the biggest thing of all of those things. I feel like you going on this like huge backpacking thing by yourself. So you get to Lima and you're there for 4 days, no plan. What the heck?
Well, my plan was to go to Machu Picchu. That was the main plan. But it was funny because so those of you that haven't stayed in a hostel before, I know that I know in America, like hostels are like can be a scary thing because of like the film industry. There's this scary movie called Hostel, and they make it seem like it's bad, but it's actually pretty awesome. So I'm in a room with like six bunk beds, and so you're meeting people. I'm an introverted person. I was an introverted person at the time. I didn't really know how to meet new people, how to socialize. And on this trip, so part of it, we're talking about introspecting, finding yourself as a person. I really had to force myself to be outgoing, to talk to people that I didn't like know. And
Mm-hmm.
the awesome thing about backpacking, about staying at hostels, is that everyone's doing the same thing. So everyone's open to talking to strangers, and everybody is really nice. And and one of
That's
the things that I
awesome.
realized talking to these people that I'm meeting at this hostel is that some of them have been on trips for months. I remember talking to this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just gonna backpack for a year." And I'm like, "How the heck are you gonna be able
That's
to manage that
crazy.
financially?" And
Yeah.
and so I meet these people, and so I'm like, how are you guys doing this? How are you guys managing to travel uh for that amount of time? I remember meeting this other couple. Man, it's so awesome. There's so many things that I can say. Um, this couple, they're from Australia, I think, or New Zealand. I can't remember because I met so many people from Australia and New Zealand because it's a thing. It's a thing in Europe,
Wow.
these European countries, Australia, like all these countries, like these people, it's a thing for them to take long trips. And I'm like, what the heck, man? I wish like that was part of the culture or mindset here in the US. Maybe it is more so than I think it is, but it just seemed like to me that um all these other countries outside of the US are like very open to to backpacking and taking long trips. So this couple, getting back to the
Yeah,
point,
I think from what I've experienced too, is that they can even go on like a hiatus with their job and still have
yeah.
job security. Like they can go for 1 or 2 years, however, and then they can go back to work. Like, what? Why don't we have that in the US? Okay, but continue. Sorry. So this couple.
So this couple, their plan was I met them when I was in Chile. Their plan was to buy a van, one of those Volkswagen
Oh, cool.
vans, um, and just drive it up from there. From I think they were gonna buy it in uh, because we were in San Diego. They were planning on going to Patagonia, which is the southernmost point of Chile and I think Argentina, if I'm correct. And they were gonna make their way all the way from the tip, all the way up to Mexico, just driving,
Dang.
all of it driving.
Wow.
And yeah, I was like, man, that's so awesome. And there's people that so I'm just wondering how are these people doing it? So there's places, there's websites where you can go to, and and even the hostels, like they offer you work, and in exchange for your work, sometimes they pay you, or sometimes they allow you to stay at their house. Like if it's a farmland, they allow you to stay at their house. So if they need help on their farm to do certain projects, they allow you to stay at their house, or they pay you with money. They give you food. There's these exchanges that happen that allow you to stay in X country for X amount of time. Um, there's also
Yeah,
websites where
it's called woofing. Um, WOOF is one of them, one of the websites.
right.
So they call the people woofers, and you go woofing, basically.
Yeah. And on these websites, I remember one person that I met. He said that he traveled on a boat for like a year, and so he didn't know anything about
Wow.
boating. And there's the owner of the boat. He was sailing from like around South America and like this crazy trip. And so he needed somebody to help him. And so like they post these things on these websites of people that they're looking for. And so this guy's like, I don't know anything about boats, but I'm just gonna help this guy. And so he that's what that person did.
And I'm sure now he
And
knows a lot about boats.
exactly, yeah. He's a boat pro. So so the other thing that they offer are the hostels where you stay at. Some of the people that work there are people who are backpackers, and they just work there. They help. In exchange, you get to stay at the hostel for free, and you get food for free. So
Nice.
yeah, there's a bunch of those people too. and and so I'm just meeting all these people. And I remember I met these Colombian girls, these two girls that were were backpacking in Peru as well, and they were gonna go. They had been to Machu Picchu already, and they're like, um, Julian, you know that you need to make a reservation beforehand, like weeks and days in advance, weeks in advance to go to Machu Picchu. And I'm like, because there's various ways that you can get to Machu Picchu, but you have to go to the city of Cusco, and from there you take a van ride to this train station, and then the train takes you to uh, Aguas Calientes, I think it's called, which is a little pueblo that is next to Machu Picchu. From there you stay in Aguas Calientes at a hostel. But the point of this was that the train that you have to take, that's the train that you have to um that you
Book in
have to
advance.
book in advance. And I got lucky.
Oh,
I got lucky that I was able to book it, and so I take this train ride, maybe like 4 days after. Actually, let me go back to the 4 days that I was in Lima. I was just exploring Lima, meeting new people. I was mainly hanging out with these two Colombian girls and this Brazilian girl as well, and we were just like, sightseeing, just traveling around. I remember we went surfing one time because you could. Lima is on the ocean, and
mm-hmm.
the area where all the hostels were at. I forget what it's called, the name of the area, but it's a very, very, very nice area, and it's basically on the beach. And so we went surfing. We did a lot of things together, and they were the ones that helped me a lot. And so I go on this trip to Cusco to be able to go to Machu Picchu. I take the train ride. The other thing that these girls told me that were like was like you have to pay to go to Machu Picchu, and you have to reserve. And thankfully, I had at the time, we have dual citizenship, so we have our Colombian citizenship and our American
Mm-hmm.
citizenship. And thanks to that, I could use my Colombian passport to reserve to book um, my my ticket to go to Machu Picchu.
Thanks for listening in. Be sure to hit subscribe and visit heavenlytreasure.net for more. See you on IG at Heavenly Treasure Living. Till next time, blessings, and remember to be the salt of the earth.